Hey everyone, it's Lori, intuitive astrologer with astrology.com and the business owner of Three Keys Astrology, my private business astrology. I began earlier this week a new series called Crimes, Critters, and Cruelty. This is the second episode regarding the Murdaugh case. Alex Murdaugh, just this past week, was arrested down in Florida and thrown in jail. New charges keep coming and coming for this guy, who is a suspect in the murder of his wife and son, who embezzled money from his law firm. And I'm going to link a video that I found that was made, keep in mind, within 6 weeks of this double murder. The young girl that did the work, Rachel Shannon, um, did an amazing and incredible job in investigative reporting. And so I'm going to link her video after this for those of you that are interested. She really honed in on some of the finer points of these nefarious crimes that are all linked to M for murder and M for the Murdaughs. Now, in this video, I'm not going to do a full synopsis of Paul Murdaugh, but I want to talk a little bit about something that we all do. All right? It's natural because of dignity and respect for the dead. It'll take you maturity and it'll take you finding your voice. For some, especially water signs, I'm one of you, Cancer rising. Sometimes it's really difficult to admit that the decedent was a horrible human being, but it's okay. We have this, I guess, an inborn fear of what happens because none of us definitively know about the afterlife. But I'm not one of those people anymore. Um, if somebody was a rotten bastard in life, I don't think they deserve dignity after death. We're talking about Paul Murdaugh, son of Alex Murdaugh, who was a vile and vicious spoiled brat entitled to this 100-year generational legacy of law, where three of his family members were in the prosecutor's office. When you see Rachel Shannon's video, and I encourage you to watch all of it, keeping in mind that I wish she'd make a new one. She did such a fine job, and as a YouTuber, I know how exhausting making videos can be. But I encourage you to watch this video, comment on it, and let's all encourage her to update her work because she's pretty phenomenal. I was reeling with tears and sadness for the Stephen Smith family and his mother and twin sister, and for the cruelty that it's likely that both Paul, the dead Murdaugh, who died at age 21, 22, of head and stomach injuries by gunshot. He was killed with a shotgun beside his own mother, who was killed with some kind of a rifle. I lost the name, but nonetheless, this was not a nice young man. You can't spin ugly. And he was vicious and vile. In Rachel Shannon's report on July the 6th, and lots has come to the fore since that date. In that report, she talks about the boating accident that occurred on the night of February 23rd when six young underage friends got together, and Paul Murdaugh was leading the pack. There's actual video footage of him going into a bar, and he's leading the whole way. Whenever you see groups of kids, mature adults, investigators, and analysts know it's easy to see who the kingpin is. It's easy to see who the leader of the pack is. It's easy to see who the fool is, leading the other fools under the influence into mayhem. Paul Murdaugh did this on more than one occasion, but because there was a fatal accident that night that stole the life of a young and beautiful daughter, Mallory Beach. We're gonna take a little closer look. I um I I I was riveted actually, and I still am. I'm an intuitive advanced astrologer, and God made me a very feeling and intuitive human being. And the mother in me and grandmother in me, and all of you that are watching, I know you share this. We see story after story of horror when young kids partake in fraternity, um, pledging, and alcohol gone wrong. Now, keep in mind, too, medically, that a young man at age 18 to 25 has raging hormones. He's got more testosterone and power in his body than he ever has and ever will in his life at those ages. When you add that to red-headed, red-blooded Mars dominance, that's kind of a bomb waiting to explode. All of you of Irish descent, like myself, Scotch Irish descent, we make redheads in our families. And while that's becoming extinct, anybody with that freckled, spotted, pretty light skin and fiery red hair, you'll know, has a passion to match their red hair. And it can be directed beautifully, or it can be the most vicious and ugly, raging, red-headed fury that you've ever seen. And I'd like you to keep that in mind. If you're just now catching this video, this is number 2 in a series I'm doing called Crimes, Critters, and Cruelty. In particular, I'm going to go on and on as long as it takes, analyzing the Murdaughs. Excuse me, please. I am a bit of an archaeologist, astrologer as well. I do legacy readings, and I was studying to be a professor of medieval studies before a tragic accident in my own life rerouted what my future would look like. I haven't lost my love for history, and when you are an advanced astrologer, you learn techniques that can help you forecast into the future and absolutely can help you dig up the buried past. We're talking about 100 years old law established legacy that this kid was born into. Paul Murdaugh was born April 14th, 1999, and he's the youngest son of Alex Murdaugh, who's in all kinds of hot water and currently in prison, in jail down in Florida. Probably not prison, probably in jail. He got some cold favor again because he was arrested on charges to fake his own murder to try to collect a $10 million insurance policy for his living son, Buster, who we'll be talking about in this video. And the bond was only $20,000. And yet these people are multimillionaires. You'll also see footage, if you go look for it, immediately after the double murder and homicide of Maggie Murdaugh, Paul's mother, Alex's wife. He's actually Randy Alex, or Richard Alex, excuse me. Richard Alex. So don't get confused with all the names. And I mean, do comment below. I do read your comments. I'm listening. And please, I encourage you to go see Rachel's work, and let's ask her to dig a little deeper because she's incredible. She's young, she's really smart, she's very detail oriented and had spent hours, I'm sure, because of the videos that I do take hours as well in research. So Paul Murdaugh, this brat son, was so vicious that the night that we're going to look at astrologically, as well as in concert with his some of his defining birth characteristics that are similar to his father, and I'm sure grandfather and grandfathers and grandfathers. If you watch the first video in this series on Alex Murdaugh, I talk at length about the cosmological repetition of patterns and traits in the astrology that are just as distinctive as one's hair color, skin type, temperament. It's like DNA, it's the stars. Actually, we're indeed made of the same material as the stars, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And so it's not that much of a coincidence but it's very interesting if you like research and you're the kind of astrologer that I am. So I'm upset. I'm upset for the family, the mother, Stephen Smith, who was killed. God, it looks like the remaining son of the Murdaughs, this Buster, is as big a brat as his brother. I can also tell you that as an advanced astrologer, we can see traits of homosexuality. This whole family has it. And Stephen Smith, you'll see in Rachel's Shannon's video, and I will put it in the link so that you can immediately click on it at the end of this video. It was remarkable work, a remarkable body of work done by a very young, kind, and compassionate young girl. Stephen Smith, they say, had straight A's. He was openly gay. But this is the motive for the murder. The medical examiner's office, as I explained in the first video, had a doctor hired by the prosecutor's office, mind you, where Alex's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all were appointed time as prosecutors. This medical examiner, Dr. Aaron Presnow, um, completely failed, in my opinion, and did great injustice to the Smith family when she determined, without any other evidence, without emphatic evidence, and refused to be questioned, by the way, by authorities who disbelieve her findings. In particular, a state trooper named Todd Proctor. And Rachel talks about that in her video too. This medical examiner deemed his Stephen Smith's death a hit and run accident because his body was found in the middle of the road. However, what was going on behind the scenes is that this young, bright, smart boy was straight A student, was loved by everyone, was openly gay, warm, friendly, caring, was in the field of nursing. That's how compassionate and kind this young man was. And he had a twin sister named Susan. And he told Susan that he had a sexual liaison with Buster Murdaugh, the only remaining son of Alex Murdaugh, for whom Alex Murdaugh, in trying to have his best friend shoot him in the head and kill him so that Buster would inherit $10 million. This family is criminal, you guys. They're corrupt and they're crooked, entitled, and I mean, it's disgusting. I hope that if enough of us keep talking about this, justice will be served for Mallory Beach, for Stephen Smith, and anyone else. He's also the Murdaugh maid of 20 years. Rumor has it that the brat's son Paul pushed her down the stairs. They say the fall was accidental, and that's the reason. Just this past week, Murdaugh's in jail down in Florida because he frauded the two remaining sons of this woman that cared for his whole gosh damn family for 20 years, cheated them, lied to them, and told them that, sue me, he said, because he knows his way around the law. I called it curling the law, calling favor for oneself when you're in law. And you're supposed to take ethical oaths. We all know every day the baloney that goes on with these people in power. And this is disturbing. I mean, the belly in me just wants to cry and hug the family, and please send your prayers and love to them. The justice is served right to your congressmen, men and women. We're all parents. We have sons and grandsons that are tempted by drink and alcohol. On February 24th, we're going to look at this date in the analysis that I'm about to give you. Paul led his friends. There were 6 of them entirely. They were all underage. And he used his big brother's ID to go get alcohol. And before that, he and one of the party, another male, went into a bar and did 2 shots of a dark liquid, maybe Jägermeister, something dark, bourbon, who knows, something dark. Within 6 or 7 minutes of each other, there's actual bar footage. He then went to a convenience store, purchased $45 worth of alcohol for the crew, and they all headed out on his father's boat that had non-working lights in the night. It's cold down in South Carolina in February. And they went on the boat, continued to drink and drink and drink and drink. And their former high school principal had a spot near this island where they were boating. And they all, after several hours of drinking, decided to stop at this party. She was having an oyster um, cookout, an oyster bake on her property. Though she's a principal, a high school principal, and though she was the high school principal of every one of these 6 kids in Paul's company on Paul's boat that had no lights on the night of February 23rd, they continued to drink and stay there for 5 more hours drinking, drinking, eating, and drinking, socializing. These 2 parents, this irresponsible high school principal and her husband, apparently are not responsible at all and should be held accountable for what transpired. Because, mind you, and all of us that boat, I'm a former boat owner, lights, fire extinguishers, these are legal necessity, especially when you're boating at night. The harm and danger that comes just from having no lights at all is astronomical. So without any lights, they continued to boat. Paul was so drunk and deranged that the whole crew, although all were under the influence and underage of God knows what, besides alcohol, they all were screaming and fighting with him, trying to get him not to drive the boat. He spit on his own girlfriend. He slapped her in front of his other friends, and he knocked her down onto the floor of the boat. Is this a nice boy? No. He's a little jerk. And deceased or not, the legacy that he led talks about a lot of heinous and impartial favor after favor after favor. The night of that boating accident, Mallory Beach was dead. He pulled the throttle back so high the nose of the boat went up into the air, and Mallory was thrown off the boat when they hit the abutment of a bridge um, in South Carolina on Parris Island. The police that came to call him never did sobriety tests. He called his grandfather right away, who was in the prosecutor's office, before he even called his father. And one of the passengers on the boat, also thrown in the water, called the police. When the police came, all kinds of suspicious stuff starts. And when they transport all the people to the hospital, no sobriety tests are done, and Grandpa and Dad show up. Prosecutor's office. The police end up recusing themselves. The medical examiner lies about the death of Stephen Smith, and here we go again. So Stephen Smith was killed in 2018, and it's just sickening to me. Stephen Smith's body was found with a 7.5 inch, almost 8 inch gaping hole on the right side of his head. Let's find out, and if you know, tell me. Are Paul and Buster Murdaugh right-handed or left-handed boys? Because while the medical examiner lied, and remember, she gets her paycheck from the prosecutor's office and deemed it hit and run because his body was found in the road, the DNA underneath the fingernails of this young boy was never analyzed. Apparently, there was a rape kit. No one knows where the results are. But ironically, the injuries look like they came from a beating by a baseball bat. This boy was covered in blood with a major head injury. His shoulder was dislocated and he was left to die in the middle of the road and likely raped. Now, he told his twin sister that he'd been having sex with Buster Murdaugh. These are elitists. These are privileged, and these people, and as I said, there's repeated homosexual probability in every one of the charts I've looked at so far in the Murdaugh family. There is a lot of that going on behind the scenes, and people in high positions and places don't want to be found out. And this has all the markings of a hate crime for this young Stephen Smith. And it just so happens in the video that Rachel Shannon produced, the rumors are that prior to this hateful crime that took the life of Stephen Smith, um, both boys, not 4 miles away from the scene of the crime, um, had just finished playing baseball. They had baseball bats with them, and Buster and Paul are the 2 biggest suspects. This boy was bludgeoned to death with a baseball bat. And if you're right-handed and you're swinging the bat at someone else, or if you're left-handed, I believe the injuries were on the right side of his forehead, so I'm sorry, I'm wrong. A left-handed person would do that. Now, it's genetically and statistically proven that uncles and sons share the probability. It goes uncle to son, uncle to nephew, excuse me. The gay probability in families that have desires for same-sex relationships is uncle or aunt to nephew. And so that goes. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is that left-handed people have a higher probability of homosexuality than right-handed people. So I guess my question, I thought that backwards. So if you're right-handed, you'd hit the left side of someone's head. If you're left-handed, you'd hit the right side. So let's find out if either of those two boys are left-handed. Number one. Now, the heinous crime that occurred. So Stephen Smith was killed in 2018, and he was a bright nursing student, loved, and that's the part that made me cry so hard and get so upset. I cry so hard for Mallory Beach's parents too. These are our kids and our grandkids, and we have to do a better job teaching them not to follow the leader when the leader is alcoholic and drug induced. We have to teach our kids to stand up and say no. Hazing should be illegal. It probably is illegal, but these sororities and fraternities need to stop once and for all the alcohol consumption that goes on with these underage kids who are often on the ticket of the state or their parents' bank account, getting an education and having the most freedom they've had in their lives thus far. So yeah, this is just ugly, and it gets uglier and uglier the more you look, the more you find out. So I talk to you when I talk to you about, and I'm gonna, please excuse me for a minute if I look funny. I have to look at a chart.